Welcome back to our live coverage from the United Nations Climate Conference here in Tianjin, China. It's Friday the 8th of October in the morning here, 10 a.m. and I'm delighted to welcome Stacey V. Lankin and Andrea Cinquina. I'm going to start. You're both from adoptanegotiator.org and you're here following the talks and tracking your negotiators and trying to hold them accountable. That's correct, isn't it? Is a good enough summary? Yeah?
Sure.
Excellent. I guess my first question then is why are you interested in climate change? Because Stacey, you look like a glamorous Russian to me, and it's not obvious why you should be interested in climate change. And Andrea, you look like a football hooligan. So why are you so why are you interested in climate change? You don't strike me as the average kind of climate hippies. I'll start with you, Stacey.
I think I'm bound to disappoint you, really, because I did first of all, two baccalaureates in environmental systems, and then actually my postgrad course in Harvard about COP15 and its effects on the world. So
you are actually an expert.
Well, a tiny expert starting off, really, but it's my interest and concern all the time.
And Andrea, I take it you're not actually a football hooligan. Why are you interested in climate change?
I cannot just give you a straight answer, because it was something that started to passionate me since now it's 8-9 years ago, and started to grow, and my interest in this subject started to grow basically because it's an ethical issue, and I really believe that this is first an ethical issue more than an environmental issue. So I just get involved in this subject, and I like it, and I like to do something try to contrast it.
And Stacey, you're from Russia, and Andrea from Italy. Is there anything, what triggered your interest? Was it something that occurred in your country, or was it something you saw on the news, Andrea?
Oh, well, it's both something concerning my country, all the news, but especially because of the future generation. I'm really concerned about our future as humans, and that's the main issue why I'm trying to do something more than the country or the problem that we have now. I really think that the serious problem we're going to see them in 20 years and 30 years, and they're going to be huge.
And I mentioned that you're with adoptanegotiator.org. Perhaps we should introduce this website a little bit more and what it's doing at the United Nations Climate Talks. What is this project?
Well, basically, I think it's amazing, to be honest. It's a project that I think it's done by youth, for youth, and representing youth, so combining all three of those. And the probably uniqueness of it is that we have to update it daily, so anyone anywhere in the world can basically log on and read as things are happening.
Okay, so what are you updating? You come to these United Nations climate talks. They happen kind of every few months. There's a big meet-up somewhere around the world, and all the negotiators come together. And what do you guys do?
My aim, I say it, I'm tracking the Italian delegation, but not only the Italian delegation. I'm also trying to translate in the most simple way what is going on inside to the people back home, to the youth back home, and to the people that want to get involved, and they don't want to just read for example, Nico magazine that might be more complicated. So I'm just trying to translate it in a simple way, what is going on inside the UN, sometimes in a funny way as well, because you need also to laugh a little bit, and I think that under this point of view we are doing a really good job.
And why should anybody care though? These United Nations talks is another example of governments getting together around the world, and then kind of not really accountable, and it's difficult to understand, and there's more acronyms and jargon than you could possibly imagine. Why should the average person back in the USA or in Europe worry about what's happening here?
Well, I think because there's a certain flair of mystery, really. I mean, you know, the conferences take place, but I think it's only like a tiny minority that really have a good understanding how it's done and how it progresses. So when we write, we basically also write about what we see, how we experience it, sort of that the person gets to view it from our perspective. I think that's what attracts the audience. It's not just about the content, it's also about the surrounding environment.
So what are these United Nations Climate Talks trying to achieve then? What's the goal here?
My goal, the UN goal.
The UN goal. What?
The UN goal is to find a solution. To find a solution that will put together all the 192 states to have like maybe a fair, ambitious and binding agreement in Cancun. And
Cancun is in Mexico. This is the next big summit, yeah?
It's the next conference of parties is going to be held in Cancun from the 29th of November until the 10th of December. So maybe what the UN is trying to do is trying to take all these countries and they put them together and try to make them sign a document that will ratify back home. Every country will ratify it, so it will be like effective.
Okay, well that sounds pretty simple. So, you know, all the countries around the world coming together and agreeing on how they're going to solve climate change. And so, you know, where's the problem? Is this an easy process? You know, when did it start? And you know, are we expecting it to finish in December in Mexico?
I think things got fueled after the Copenhagen conference last year, because as we understand, the Kyoto Protocol is going to finish in 2 years' time by 2012, and the problem is that the goals that were originally set are yet under question if they're actually going to be met or not. So the big debate is here as the time gap is closing up, if it's going to happen or not.
Okay, so there's this existing agreement, the Kyoto Protocol, and that's going to finish in a couple of years, but what does the Kyoto Protocol do? What is it? It's a difficult question. It's a broad summary.
It's a very long question. Now, basically, I think it makes more sense to answer that as the countries are at this point, they actually want to review it. And a lot of countries are lining up that there are some problems and that they would like ideally to have it differently. So all the talks that are happening here in Tianjin are actually about what they're going to discuss at Cancun and what conclusions to draw based on their needs and wants.
Okay, so there's kind of this existing agreement called the Kyoto Protocol, which some rich countries have signed, and they're negotiating it again and trying to work out what happens next. Okay, so it's not so simple then. You can quickly realise that it's a difficult process. So this conference here is taking place in China, and these United Nations talks take place all around the world. And how many talks have you been to now, Andrea? Do you know?
I think this is my sixth.
So it's over a couple of years. I mean, is it the same for you?
No, it's the first one I'm attending personally, but I've been involved with the previous one, preparations.
Okay, so Andrea, maybe this question should be for you then. China, is it different? This is, you know, a lot has been made that these talks are being held here, and obviously China's a massive player in global politics and in climate politics, and it's the biggest investor in the world in renewable energy, and it's also the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases now. So a lot of emphasis being placed that it's important it's being held here. So have these talks, have they been different to the previous 5 or so that you've been to?
Not really. What I found out is like it doesn't matter that the city in which the talks are held, but they're always talking about the same things, and it's like this redundant process. I mean, like after 2 years of following the negotiations, I can tell you that it doesn't really. It looks like this process it's difficult because it's really slow, and if you just if you look at it, like they don't have many days to negotiate, because if you think about it, they just have 5 days now, and then again 10 in Cancun, and then they had like 5 days in Bonn. So it's just every time they gather, it's just a lot of procedures, so they're always repeating the same things. And China is not different than the other countries, for what I can tell you. This is my personal opinion.
And so, do you feel positive, or do you feel optimistic? optimistic? Because you say the talks are very slow, and it's certainly true. We sit here throughout the week and we give updates, and you do get good news, and you get movement. And this week we think we're seeing some important progress when it comes to helping vulnerable countries adapt to the impacts of climate change. But then it's, sometimes it's a bit disheartening, and you think, oh, nothing's moving forward. How do you feel about this process after 2 years in it?
Well, I'm positive and I'm optimistic, because I think that every time that the human race has to challenge the challenge, like a big challenge in front of themselves, they always solved it. I think that the problem here is that states, they understand that this is a real issue that should be addressed right now, but they just don't want to do it right now. They just want to chill out a little bit more and to do it like maybe in South Africa. That's my idea, and South Africa is going to be the next the place where the next COP is going to happen, COP 17 in 2011.
And COP 17, the COP is kind of the big the big annual conference between all the countries.
Basically, it's where all the countries that are part of the UNFCCC, they are called parties, and they gather each other in a December, basically November, December every year, and that's the conference of the parties. And these are only intersessionals to prepare to the conference of the parties.
Okay, so you have the UNFCCC, which are the name for these climate talks, and all of the countries come together and they meet once a year at this big talks. And you think that maybe not in Mexico this year, but the next one in South Africa, that's where you're hoping they're going to stop chilling out and start.
I hope they're going to do it in Cancun already, like in 2 months' time. But at the pace of how the negotiations are going now, I think it's difficult.
Okay. And Stacey, you said that these are your first talks that you've kind of come to and attended. Is it what you expected, or has it been a surprise? Or I know that it's a bit of a culture shock when I went to the first big conference of parties, or the big negotiations in Copenhagen, and these are quite different to that. But how do you feel about this?
Well, basically, because I've been involved in preparations to the previous ones, it's not so much of a shock. So you do have an idea what to expect, and it probably doesn't differ that much. However, I think it's sort of more on a physical level of endurance to be here from early morning till late evening, and to try and track down your delegation or to exchange news. It's always updating, you're always somewhere doing something, and that's a bit demanding. So that's something new.
I was reading a blog yesterday by somebody saying, he was a bit cynical and saying that you have all these people, and they all around the world, and they come maybe 2-3 times a year, and they go and meet in a city, and it's a bit of a circus, and not much is achieved, and they all fly there, and huge amounts of carbon, huge costs, and then they have a big jolly and a big party, and this is ridiculous. Why are we paying for this? And there's no progress being made. We're just paying for diplomats all around the world to come and have a bit of a holiday in a hotel and sit and relax. Is that the perception that you have? Do people enjoy this, or is it hard? What's the daily routine of the negotiators that you're following?
Well, I think that it's a process that is necessary. So it's true that people are like flying here from every part of the world, but I think it's something that is necessary. They have to do it. They cannot just solve it in a Skype conference. So I think it's necessary. And sometimes I try to think as a negotiator, and I think it's really difficult, because maybe sometimes they just want to solve this issue, but they cannot, because they have mandate from their own country, so they have to do maybe what they don't want to do, and it's a really difficult job. It's also stressful, I think.